Great online tuition. In today's lesson, we want to look at quadratic equations, and under this we would look at one, the definition of a quadratic equation. We'll also look at methods of solving quadratic equations. Then we will solve questions involving quadratic equations of the form ax squared minus c equals 0. We'll also look at solving equations of the form ax squared plus bx equals 0. And the last thing we'll do in this lesson, we'll look at solving the quadratic equation involving solving the quadratic equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So without wasting my time, let us go straight into action. Now, what is a quadratic equation? A quadratic equation is any equation that can be expressed in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. And one thing you need to understand is that the a here, the b here, and the c here are all what we call constants. And then the a must not be equal to 0. Why? Because when a goes to 0, it means the x that has a degree of 2 goes away and it becomes just a linear equation. There are several ways we can solve this quadratic equation. One of the methods is to factorize completely. We can factorize, which we call the factorization method. The second approach we can use is we can use what we call completing of squares. Completing of squares. The third approach we can use is to use what we call the quadratic formula. And the last but not the least approach is where we use what we call the graphical method. In this series, I will be tackling all these approaches. But let's go on to what we have to do today. So we want to look at how to solve a quadratic equation involving a quadratic equation of the form ax squared minus c is equal to 0. How do we solve this? The first approach here is that we can add c to both sides because it's an equation. Whatever we do to the left hand side, because an equation has what we call left hand side, and then it has also what we call right hand side. And in solving equation, whatever you do to the left hand side, you do same to the right hand side. So in this vein, when we are solving questions involving a quadratic equation of this form, what we need to do here is that we'll add c to both sides. So we'll have ax squared minus c plus c, and then 0 plus c. This means the c and c will go away. So we'll have ax squared is equal to what? C. To do away with the a, we divide through by a, divide here by a, which means this a and this a goes away. Then we have x squared is equal to c over a. But we are interested in x, so we'll find the square root of both sides. So the square root here, then here becomes plus or minus. You need to understand this, that anytime we find the square root, we need to look at both the positive and the negative side. So this becomes our x is equal to plus or minus square root of c over a. Now, when we use this approach, we can solve questions involving quadratic equation of the form ax squared minus c. Let's take a typical example and see. So, solve the equation x squared minus 4 is equal to 0. Good. So what do we do? Here we have x squared minus 4 equals 0, so we add 4 to both sides. So we have x squared minus 4 plus 4 is equal to 0 plus 4. So this goes to 0, so we have x squared is equal to 4. Now we need to find the square root of both sides. So square root here, square root here. So this will cancel the square roots, and we'll have x is equal to plus or minus 2. In other words, x is equal to 2 or x is equal to negative 2. That solves our question. Okay. Now let us look at solving equation which is of the form ax squared plus bx is equal to 0. And doing so, what do we do? The first thing we do here is to factorize our x out. So we'll have x out, and we'll have ax plus b is equal to 0. From here, we use what we call the zero product rule. What does this rule say? This rule says that if you have two numbers multiplying each other, let's say we have a multiplying b and the answer is 0, the zero product rule says that it is either a is equal to 0 or the b is equal to 0, because any number times 0 gives you 0. So the zero product rule says that it is either one of these ones is equal to 0. So using this approach, then it means that we are going to have, let me clean this. Using the zero product rule, it means that we'll have either our x is equal to 0 or our ax plus b is equal to 0, which means that our ax is equal to minus b, because we subtract b from both sides. Then our x will be equal to minus b over a. So finally, our x will be either equal to 0 or x is equal to minus b over a. So this is how we solve quadratic equations of this form. So let's take an example of this form and see how we're going to solve it. So let's solve x squared minus 3x is equal to 0. So in this approach, what do? The first thing we do is to factorize our x out. So factorize x out. We have x minus 3, and this is equal to 0. From here, applying our zero product rule, it is either our x is equal to 0 or our x minus 3 is equal to 0, which means our x is equal to 3. So therefore, our final answer is x is equal to 0 or x is equal to 3. Good. Now we want to look at our last form of the quadratic equation, which is ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Now, in order to solve a quadratic equation of this form, what we normally do here is that the first thing to look at here is we look at the product of a and c. So a times c will give us ac. The next thing we look out for is we look for the factors of ac such that if we add the factors of ac such that if we sum it, it should give us the coefficient of the x, which is what? B. And when we get to this point, the next thing we do is to group like terms and factorize completely. So let us look at an example in this form. So for example, in this form, we have x squared minus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. So what is the coefficient of x squared? It is 1. We don't write the 1. So 1 times 6 gives us 6. Let me write it up here. It gives us 6. Now, we want to find the factors of 6. Say that when we add, we should get negative 5. 1 is a factor, 2 is a factor, 3 is a factor, and then we have 6 itself as a factor. Now, when we multiply 1 times 6, we get 6. But when we add 1 plus 6, we will not get 6. Okay. We can also decide to use negative 1 times 6. But negative 1 times 6 cannot give us positive 6. That is negative 6. So we cannot consider that. If we do negative 1 and negative 6, yes, it will give us positive 6. But when we add, it cannot give us negative 5. So considering 2 and 3, if we take negative 2 times negative 3, it gives us positive 6. If we add negative 2 minus 3, it gives us what? Negative 5. So we can use that. So we come back to our question. We have x squared minus 2x minus 3x plus 6 is equal to 0. Then we can factorize x out. We have x minus 2. Then here, the common factor here is minus 3. We have x minus 2. This is equal to 0. So we have x minus 2. And then x minus 3 is equal to 0. From here, we apply our zero product rule, which says that it is either x minus 2 is equal to 0, which implies our x equals 2, or our x minus 3 is equal to 0, which implies our x equals 3. Therefore, our x is equal to 2 or x is equal to 3. Isn't that so simple? So in doing this, it means we have used the approach of factorizing. We could also use the approach of completing of the squares, or we could use the approach of the quadratic formula or graphical method to solve this. This brings us to a close of this lesson. See you another time. Bye.